When it comes to Nintendo, there's no shortage of heroes. Mario, Link, Samus Aran, Kirby, and Pikachu are just some of the familiar faces we've grown up with. There are others as well, who, while not appearing in as many games, are still held dearly in the hearts of many fans. In this episode, we will take a look at a hero by the name of Pit, who was the star of Kid Icarus in the 8-bit days, who faded away, then rose up to be reborn for the modern era. We'll take a look at how the original Kid Icarus game works, why it's so difficult, and how you play to win. Also, you'll learn about some of the hidden secrets hiding in the game that once you see them, you'll never look at it the same way again. So sit back, grab an eggplant, and celebrate, because Kid Icarus is 30. The origins of Kid Icarus began when a man named Toru Osawa joined Nintendo as a programmer. He was young, fresh out of school, and would be the main influence behind Kid Icarus. Within his first year, he was given the green light to create a game for the Famicom Disk System. Osawa wanted to create a game with a story based on Greek mythology, which was a topic he always found interesting. He would develop the story of the game on the mythical hero Perseus, who, using a mirrored shield, beheaded the Gorgon Medusa, who had the power of turning men into stone with a single gaze. Even after Medusa was beheaded, this power was retained until her head was placed on the shield of Athena, known as the Aegis. The character design of Pit, as well as the English title of his game, are derived from the myth of Icarus, who, with his father Daedalus, used wings crafted from feathers and wax to escape from imprisonment on the island of Crete. Icarus, in his youthful hubris, flew too close to the sun, which melted the wax, caused his feathers to fail, and he fell from the sky to the ocean below. The game's stages also resemble the 3 acts in Dante's Divine Comedy, which was divided into Hades, Purgatory, and the Paradise. The stages in Kid Icarus are divided into the Underworld, Overworld, and Skyworld. Toru Osawa wanted a game that was action-based, but still contained some RPG elements. A running and jumping element was taken from Super Mario Bros. Shooting elements and vertical stages are borrowed from Metroid. Then comes an element of collecting items, similar to that in The Legend of Zelda, as well as navigating large maze-like stages. Because of this, it's been quoted in Nintendo Power that Pit can jump like Mario, collect items like Link, and shoot enemies like Samus. Kid Icarus, known in Japan as Hikari Shinwa Palutena No Kagami, was planned for release in the fall of 1986 for the Famicom Disk System. Getting the game done would not be an easy task. The game was produced alongside Metroid. With most of Nintendo's R&D 1 staff working on Metroid, Toru Osawa was put under the direction of Satoru Okada for Kid Icarus. After the completion of Metroid, the development staff took a much-needed vacation, leaving Osawa to develop Kid Icarus on his own. When Okada returned, he had found that Osawa had no help in developing the game, and could not show the work that he had finished to that point. Okada immediately assigned the Metroid staff to help Osawa, and 3.5 months of intensive development began. Moving into the fall, production of the game went day and night, with Osawa even forgoing his honeymoon, and he began sleeping at his desk and getting back to work as soon as he woke up. According to an interview given in the Japanese magazine Nintendo Dream in 2004, which was later translated by the website Metroid Database, as December drew near, Osawa was still working on the game. He was offered heated kotatsu tables and futons to keep warm, but Osawa said that he wished he could tell the management to prepare more staff for the game instead. Furthermore, Osawa was given a hard deadline of December 16th to finish the game. In the same interview, Osawa recalled that on December 16th, the management came for the final game and said, "If this game doesn't have any bugs in it, it's finished." There weren't any bugs, and the discs were quickly written and shipped out, meaning the planned release date. On December 19th, 1986, Hikari Shinwa Palutena No Kagami, was released for the Famicom Disk System. In English, it means The Myth of Light, Palutena's Mirror. The game sold approximately 550,000 copies on original discs and 520,000 more through Disc Writer in Japan. The game was then translated to English and brought overseas as Kid Icarus. The game was first released in European markets in February 1987 and held over in America until July, to be released just before The Legend of Zelda and alongside Metroid, games which Kid Icarus takes strong influences from. Though there weren't many gaming publications at the time, word of mouth spread, and the game earned a reputation for being very difficult and a little weird, while maintaining a charm that could be admired. Though Kid Icarus was not as popular as The Legend of Zelda or Metroid, it later grew to become a favorite in many collections. A proper sequel was announced for Game Boy in 1991. The game was released only in North America and Europe, and would be for a long time Pit's final fall. It seemed that Pit would be lost as a footnote in 8-bit history. But Kid Icarus would be re-released in 2004 on the Game Boy Advance in Japan as a Famicom Mini title, and on the Wii Virtual Console in 2007. He would finally become a playable character again in 2008, appearing in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Now there had been a renewed interest in Pit and his game, and it allowed Nintendo to develop and release the first new game in the Kid Icarus series in 21 years. Kid Icarus Uprising. There was also a re-release of the original game for the 3DS, with updated, detailed 3D scrolling backgrounds. This was followed up by Pit, Palutena, and Dark Pit, joining the cast of fighters in Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U in 2014. Kid Icarus was also included on the NES Classic Edition in 2016 as well. There's no telling what Pit will be up to next, but you can certainly see that much like the original Icarus, Pit's heroics have stood the test of time. Is Kid Icarus hard to play? When we come back, we take a look at learning the tricks that balance out the gameplay of the original Kid Icarus.
Pittoyo, Medusa を倒せ。光の国エンジェランドに平和を呼び戻すのじゃ。マルチアクションゲーム光神話パルテナの鏡。
あなた、会社よ。行ってきます。
やればやるほどディスクシステム。
The original Kid Icarus has grown a reputation since the 8-bit days. Loved by some and hated by others, it's a tough game with many challenges. If you've ever played the game without any instructions, it can be a rough experience. Not that the instructions help too much anyway. The game's difficulty is brutally tough in the first 3 stages, where the screen moves up vertically. If you fall off the screen, you're finished. You do get essentially infinite lives, but you have to complete each stage to the end on one go. And if you can't make it, you go right back to the start and lose everything you've earned. This can make the first time you play very frustrating, especially if you've played Super Mario Bros., which lets you start halfway through a stage if you almost make it to the end, or The Legend of Zelda, which lets you keep the things you found and save the game after each attempt. Also, some items don't work until you can fully recharge your health, and others have no effect until later in the game, which, if you don't know that, is confusing. It seems in a way a little backwards from other games, because as you progress in the game, things get easier and the game moves faster, if you know what to do. So let's take an in-depth look at how Kid Icarus actually works. The play mechanics are close to that of The Legend of Zelda and Metroid. Pit traverses the game's stages and shoots enemies to defeat them. The enemies leave hearts, which are used as the game's currency, and can be used to buy items and upgrades later in the game. You can also discover and earn items and upgrades by playing through the game in depth. When navigating the scrolling stages, enemies appear in waves of 4, and will always gravitate towards Pit. If you're trying to run through a stage like it's Super Mario Bros., the enemies will move in what appears to be erratic patterns, and makes navigating the stages much more difficult. This pattern is easiest to detect at the beginning of the first stage, as the first enemies appear in groups of 4 and move left or right depending on where you stand. Moving further up the stage, there are flying enemies, also appearing in groups of 4. The easiest way to defeat these is to stand still and shoot them as they come down the screen, then slowly moving up. There are also enemies that will jump up from the bottom of the screen. It's best to shoot these as they land. Beyond that are enemies that appear under your feet, so look out. Then there are areas that are single screen, such as the endurance rooms and maze stages. These enemies appear in groups of 8 and appear to move in a random pattern, but each one moves in its own loop. If you stop to take a look at how they fly, you can see the pattern easily. Other enemies in the single screen maze stages follow the same rules as they do in the scrolling stages. When you start the game, you have only one life bar, which allows you to get hit 7 times before you have to start all over again. You can increase that when you reach a number of points on your total score. At 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, and 200,000 points, you can add one more block to your health meter. Each new block gives you 8 more hits, for a total of 39 hits in a full health meter before a game over. And you have to fill it by buying health or visiting a hot spring on your own. It doesn't refill after each stage. Building up a strong defense for Pit is pretty straightforward, and while those scores aren't easy to get, it's clear what you need to do. But to make Pit's arrows stronger and the enemies easier to defeat is a very different process. In the instruction booklet it says, how many of the enemy have you killed? How many chambers have you entered? Have you got a lot of items? And how little damage has the enemy inflicted on you? What this doesn't tell you is that there is a fully functioning, hidden score system at work behind the scenes in the game. This scoring system will determine if you can upgrade your weapons in certain stages. The only stages where you can upgrade are 1-2, 2-1, 2-2, and 3-1. You can get the upgrades by entering the sacred chambers in these stages. Sometimes a friendly god appears, and sometimes not. You get one chance in each of the stages, and that's it. If you pass any of these stages without the weapon upgrade, it's gone forever. So how does that work? You need to enter a sacred chamber with a score of 10,000 points. The hidden score gives you points for defeating enemies, collecting hearts, and items. But it also takes away points for firing arrows and taking damage from enemies. You gain 100 points for each enemy that leaves a small heart, 300 points for an enemy that leaves a half heart, and 500 points for each enemy that leaves a big heart. On top of that, you get the same amount of points for each of the hearts you collect. So long as you don't reach 999, then it doesn't count. You also get 100 points for each mallet you collect and each item you buy, except the chalices of water of life. And each weapon that you buy gives you 1,000 points. So getting 10,000 points and upgrading should be easy, right? Well, not so fast. Because you lose 10 points for each arrow you fire, you lose 300 points for each hit taken from an enemy, and you lose 500 points for breaking a pitcher in a treasure chamber. It's actually a better strategy to avoid the treasure chambers, as you lose 1,480 points at best if you clear it, and some items like angel's wings and barrels can be bought elsewhere. The rooms full of spec noses should also be avoided, as these give you no points on your hidden score. Remember, the only stages where you can upgrade are 1-2, 2-1, 2-2, and 3-1. In other stages, it doesn't really matter what the score is, even though it's still being counted. For example, starting out doing this would be bad, but if you move carefully, you can end up with 190 points for each enemy, so the first wave of enemies can get you a little over 3,000 points. That's almost 1/3 of the way there. Of course, if you fail the stage and have to start over, the hidden score goes back to 0. You also can't have a negative score, so at least there's that. As long as you have 9,700 points by the time you make it to the sacred chamber in each of these stages, you'll get 300 points for entering, make it to 10,000, and get the arrow upgrade. Pit's hair will change color, and the enemies will weaken. Then there are training rooms, which give your weapon a boost as well. This can help your hidden score, as you can gain points faster and lose points less often. The best one to take for leveling up quickly is the crystal. Once your health meter recharges, any enemy who touches your spinning force field will be defeated, and you won't lose points on your hidden score, because you won't be using arrows. The next best weapon is the flaming arrow, which gives you a better chance to hit an enemy at close range. The last upgrade is the sacred bow, which lets you shoot to the edge of the screen. I recommend this last because if you're trying to preserve points, you shouldn't be shooting arrows unless it's absolutely necessary, and the closer the range, the better. All of these elements in the game affect the ending too, which rewards you based on how strong Pit has become by the end of the game. In order to get the best ending, you have to have maximum arrow strength and endurance, as well as maximum hearts and all 3 weapons earned from the training chambers. If you maximize some of these but not all, the endings will be different, and with none maximized, you'll get the worst ending. Also, the best ending in the English version does not exist in the Japanese version, and it also has a worst ending not in the English version. With these tactics in mind, Kid Icarus can be a little bit easier and a lot more enjoyable to play. So good luck! Eggplants and hot springs aren't even in Greek mythology, so why are they in the game? When we come back, more secrets in Kid Icarus revealed.
Metroid を破壊せよ。
地底深く広がる迷路要塞に宇宙征服の野望が渦巻く。
行け、宇宙戦士サムス。
ファミリーコンピュータディスクカードにアクション&迷路ゲーム。メトロイド。やればやるほどディスクシステム。
On the surface, it's easy to see that Kid Icarus takes a strong influence from ancient Greek mythology, but there are several elements that come from Japanese culture that you might not be aware of. In certain stages, you'll come across a hot spring, which will fill your health meter if you sit in it. It's colored yellow to give the player a subtle hint that it's a safe place. But it's a pretty obvious hint if you're familiar with Japanese hot springs. In Japanese, they are called onsen and occur naturally all over Japan due to the water trapped underground being heated by volcanic activity. Many springs are high in sulfuric content, which turns the water yellow. The natural mineral composition can help people recover from a number of conditions, including rheumatism, hypertension, and skin diseases. The relaxing nature of sitting in the hot spring is also beneficial for mental health. If you grew up with this common knowledge, it's easy to know what to do when Pit sees a hot spring. If you enter a treasure room, one of the pictures contains the god of poverty who will send you out of the room and you won't gain any hearts found in the room. It's clever in a game filled with mythical creatures to have a deity who punishes you. However, for the god of poverty, it's no myth. The god of poverty is real. In Japanese, he is called Bimbogami and usually appears as a small, skinny old man carrying a folding fan. There's also an actual shrine dedicated to him in Nagano, Japan, where people can pray for him to not visit their homes and instead bring in Fukugami, the god of good fortune. After defeating one of the 3 stage bosses, Pit receives a treasure chest with what are called the 3 sacred treasures: the Arrow of Light, the Mirror Shield, and the Wings of Pegasus. In the Japanese version, they are called Sanshu no Jingi, and in reality are the imperial regalia of the Emperor of Japan and the royal family. The 3 sacred treasures in Japan are a sword called Kusanagi, which represents valor, a mirror called Yata no Kagami, which represents wisdom, and a jewel called Yasakani no Magadama, which represents benevolence. They are believed to have been brought to earth by Ninigi no Motoko, the grandson of the goddess Amaterasu, and were passed on to his great-grandson Jimmu, the first emperor of Japan. The 3 sacred treasures of Japan are used in the enthronement ceremony of each emperor, and were last used in 1990, but are not available for public viewing, nor are they allowed to be photographed. The ones you are looking at here are what they are believed to look like from first-hand accounts. There's also a version of the 3 treasures in modern life: a television, a refrigerator, and a washing machine. In the 1950s and 60s, many Japanese women said that they could only marry a husband who could provide them with the modern 3 sacred treasures. Then there is the Eggplant Wizard, definitely the weirdest part of the game, as they can curse you and change you into an eggplant. But why such a weird enemy and effect? Part of the answer comes from Toru Osawa himself. In his 2004 interview, Osawa stated that while working on Kid Icarus, he wanted to create a character that cursed Pit and turned him into an eggplant. He got this idea thinking about his summer bonus while making Kid Icarus. An eggplant is a common Japanese summertime food. He recalled that nobody in the development staff thought this was strange. While you may or may not find it strange, there's something a little funny to remove the curse, if you understand Japanese. The word for eggplant in Japanese is nas. To remove the eggplant curse, you have to visit a nurse. The transliteration of the word nurse in Japanese is nas. The word for heal in Japanese is naosu, which has 2 of the same characters from eggplant and nurse. It's a bit of wordplay humor that English players have missed all this time. It's great to see that Toru Osawa was able to keep a sense of humor while dealing with the difficult task of creating Kid Icarus. He was able to get a few more gags in, as the enemy known as Komeito is similar to a Metroid, and in the instruction booklet says it came from a planet other than Earth. And Specknose is a loving homage to the game's soundtrack composer Hirokazu Hip Tanaka. 30 years, the legend still lives on. It's truly a wonderful thing to see the work of Toru Osawa, Pit, and Kid Icarus enshrined in the pantheon of Nintendo history where they belong and so rightfully deserved.